Tonight we have, and I am so honored to have Mr. Dante King again as our guest host tonight. So actually, he's going to be hosting, and I'm going to be co-hosting tonight. He has a lot of great information. He is a three-time author. He is a motivational speaker. He has a lot of accolades that I can't even list because he's a highly successful man. In his path, he has a lot going on. He speaks at events. People are drawn to him. He's just a very, very intelligent man. And I want him to kind of tell you guys a little bit about himself before he gets started on his presentation tonight. I know he was going to want some participation. He'll let you know, he'll prompt whenever questions. So give him the floor, allow him to speak and say what he wants to say. Hey, Mr. Eric, welcome back up.
Well,
Hey,
thank
DC,
you.
welcome up.
I want to thank her for saying I'm an intelligent young man. I feel special because she told me to drop because some guy was coming onto the panel to be next to her. But I didn't know she was going to introduce me this way, and I want to feel very special. I don't want to say thank you.
You're welcome for taking the credit.
Oh, it wasn't for me? Oh,
No,
well,
sir.
I'm going to be quiet real quick, and I'm going to cry in peace. Even though he's a
Okay.
better good-looking man than me, I'm going to cry. I'm going to go ahead and be quiet.
Mr. Eric, a trip. We're glad to have you up, Mr. Eric. But anyway, guys, this is going to be a good live tonight. A very interesting topic. Dante is going to tell us a little bit about his background, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his books and his journey. So I hope you guys enjoy it tonight. Feel free to interact. If you have questions, he'll let you know when he's open for questions. And I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Dante King.
Hello, people. I'm really grateful to be here with all of you. As I've been in the group for some weeks now, some months now, really getting acquainted with everyone that comes to these conversations, and it's just been a real joy and pleasure. So I'm grateful to be back here tonight. I hope that I'm able to do this conversation tonight some justice so that I am successful in making it clear as to what my work is and what has inspired me to take this journey and be on the journey that I'm on. I will say, as a result of doing this work and being in this work, I've received death threats. I've received, violent threats, people doxing me, locating previous addresses where I lived, because nothing in this society, in the people who run our country and in this society, they don't like when it's challenged, right? Or when the truth is revealed in ways that goes against the narratives that they have painted through education, through media, through all the ways that we receive information. So I will be sharing with you just some of the people just up front who inspired me. One being a psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Franz Fanon. Another one who is very embedded into all of my lectures and the work that I do now, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who wrote the ISIS papers. Dr. Franz Fanon, he wrote a book called Black Skin, White Masks, which I'll be referring to. And he also wrote a book called The Wretched of the Earth. So Dr. Francis Cress Welsing was a medical doctor and a psychiatrist. She was actually fired from Howard because of her theory around white genetic, it was called her color confrontation theory, which caused a lot of a stir. It caused a lot of drama back in the 1970s, because she basically was saying that white people are genetically recessive, and because they are aware that they are genetically recessive, Europeans, because they cannot produce large quantities of melanin, what we now refer to as melanin or skin pigmentation, that they can be genetically annihilated by people of African descent and brown people in the world. And so that they've created a whole behavioral system, which is called white supremacy, which she deems as a compensatory logic system, because race is not real and it's something that was created, and it's something that was created for the social placement of people in a society because of what the color white represented in European culture, meaning it was close to God. It represented things that were angelic, pure. And meanwhile, the color black, the word originally Niger, which transcended into negre when the French used it, and then that transcended into Negro when the English began to use it, which constitutes black, right, in the Spanish language. That was constructed to debase people of African descent because of the ways that they were interpreting them when they came into contact with them, particularly the English in the 1600s. And there's a book, and I'll be sharing a few books with you guys tonight, maybe a lot. But this book, White Over Black by Winthrop Jordan, it's called White Over Black, American Attitudes Toward the Negro from 1550 to 1812. And in this book, he chronicles all the ways that Europeans begin to interpret people of African descent who were very dark complected during the 1500s and the 1600s, and how they then begin to refer to them by that color concept. And so understanding that even the concept or the label of black is a Eurocentric creation, is a European creation, and something that has been levied upon us, or we've been labeled as a race of people for the purposes of our debasement. Understanding that led me to then understand how everything in this society has been set up and positioned to be anti-black. And so Dr. Bobby Wright was another one, someone that I'll be quoting from. He was a psychologist. He wrote a collection of papers around the psychopathic racial personality. Dr. Alvin Poussant, who was a psychiatrist, he taught and was the dean of students, the associate dean of students at Harvard for a long time. But his work back in the 60s and 70s was very powerful. And some of the things that he was saying. So I refer to some of his earlier works, because in his later works, when he got money, he became part of the black bourgeoisie. And so he wasn't as radical as he had been previously. And then Dr. Amos Wilson. I absolutely love Dr. Amos Wilson. So Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's book, The ISIS Papers, is what I just referenced. Dr. Amos Wilson, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation. So it's called Black on Black Violence. The psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. This was a book that really began to speak to me, along with his other book, The Falsification of African Consciousness. And then Dr. Frantz Fanon, his book, this is the first book that I mentioned, Black Skin, White Mass. This book just changed my life. So I spent a lot of years just reviewing thousands and thousands and thousands of legal examples that helped me to understand how whiteness and white supremacy began to form, and they begin to create the cultural foundation and the structures upon which we live, even so that anyone who participates in this culture, and this is not just specific to America, but I'm talking about it within the American context, because that's where we are. But white supremacy is a global phenomenon, because they've gone around the world and dominated people through militarism and through violence. But anti-blackness too. And so all of us that identify as people of color, we really serve Eurocentrism and we serve white supremacy, because it's how we have been colonized. Once forced assimilation is now an assimilation that we really buy into. So you can hear people, for example, there was a situation recently with Nicki Minaj, and they were saying, oh, she's sucking up to Donald Trump. How dare her do that? She's a traitor. And meanwhile, these are people that have Chanel bags and Louis Vuitton clothes and all of these things that really work to serve Eurocentrism. They worship white capitalism. talking about measuring themselves by how much money they have in the bank, where they live, and status within a white Eurocentric society. But they project onto her that like she has a problem without doing their own self-examination. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Nicki Minaj fan. I am absolutely not. I'm too old. Okay. But I'm using that example because I saw there are just so many ways in this society that we don't implicate ourselves, but we will levy judgments and labels upon other people. So, I think it's important for me to say that too, because in my work, I implicate myself. Like I was that Black bourgeois person. And when I read Dr. E. Franklin Fraser's book, The Black Bourgeoisie, that changed my life too. That book came out in 1957. But he's saying, to be American and to be a good Black, to be an exceptional Negro or an acceptable Negro, is to become like white people. To be American, right, is to become like white people. They created that construct and everything that defines it, from the legal structure, the political structure, the language, the logic, the educational structure, everything. So I'm going to pause because I know I'm saying a lot, but I do want to go into some of my research that can help you better understand what led me to make some of the conclusions that I have made. And by the way, before I open it up, so my first book was The 400-Year Holocaust, White America's Legal, Psychopathic, and Sociopathic Black Genocide, and the Revolt Against Critical Race Theory. This book, I feel, was like me taking the first stab at writing a book, and I was so emotional. I had so much to get out because I couldn't believe what I had found and what I was understanding, and I just was traumatized. So you'll see within the structure of this book, I'm writing with a lot of emotion. And it was my first book. I consider it my baby, right? And then 3 years later, so that was the end of 2021. And then last year, so about 3.5 years later, I released Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness, White Psychopathology, Collective Psychosis, and Trauma in America. And in this book, I really started to hone into some of these clinical frameworks and commentaries that I just shared from some of the people that I named a minute ago. And then my next book, which is coming out on February 24th, really takes a deep dive using clinical frameworks to define what's going on in our culture, what has happened in our culture, both past and present. And so this book is called The Psychopathy of Whiteness, The Epigenetics of Anti-Blackness, Malignant Narcissism, and Collective Diabolical Antisocial Personality Disorder. So all of that said, I'd like to open this up for maybe 5 minutes of questions or 10 minutes.
Okay. Anybody have any comments they want to say right now? Be sure to tap the screen, share the live, and make sure that you participate. One of the questions I did have when you were talking about what was my question? God, I had the question a minute ago. If I don't, I got short-term memory. If I don't if I don't say it while I'm thinking it, I might lose it. It was something you said when you first started about the, what was it? Something about the melanin in our skin, or you was talking about the cultural differences, I guess, pertaining to our skin or something. I don't remember what I was thinking, but I had a question about that, but I forgot what it was. I'm sorry. Can you kind of talk back about that?
Oh,
Circle
sure.
back to that.
Yeah. And so going back to, Dr. Cress-Welsing, what she said in her framework around white supremacy, which is psychogenetic. It's a psychology that is driven by this awareness, this reality that white people can be annihilated.
That's what I wanted to know. So you were saying what now?
Well, because they are genetic recessive. So, for example, in the example that she gave back in the 70s, if you take a Black person and you take a white person, they procreate, what would be produced is someone that would be referred to as a non-white person in this culture, because they would have some melanin in their skin. The melanin gene is dominant. The lack of melanin producing person, or the person that lacks the ability to produce melanin, or high quantities of it, is genetic recessive, which is why if you have, a Black and a white parent, that child is going to have some features, whether it be the curliness of the hair or the the texture of the hair, their features, and color, they're not going to come out looking like a European person, especially if that person is a person of African descent, that has a darkness to them, that has large quantities of melanin in their skin, and in their hair. Yeah. And so
Okay.
she said,
I'm
she
sorry. Go ahead.
says that the reality of white people as a genetic recessive group has driven them to dominate and destroy Black and brown people. And if you go back to the Catholic Church, that's what the Papist Bulls were about, and the Christian Church too, where they basically said that they could go around the world and dominate people that they didn't deem as human. And so that's how you get to the actions that the Christian Church took when it came to the institution of slavery, because a lot of people don't understand that the Christian Church was responsible for setting up the institution of enslavement. And there are thousands of laws that speak to this if you go back to the colonial period. And I'll share a few today. But what I began to find in my research, and again, I've looked at over 50,000 legal examples dating back to the 15th century, so the 1400s, going through the 1500s and the 1600s. But I really took a deep dive in the 1600s and 1700s, because that's when the colonies here in the U.S. began to form, based on a charter that was established by the King Henry the VIII. Yeah. So she says, and I'll just give an example. This is a law from 1705. And as I'm reading it, because it's written in like British/English context, I'll try to break down what they're saying. So they say, and for a further Christian care and usage of all Christian servants, be it also enacted by the authority aforesaid, and it is hereby enacted that no Negroes, mulattoes, or Indians, although Christians or Jews, Moors, Mohammedans, or other infidels, shall at any time purchase any Christian servant, nor any other, except of their own complexion. And so they're saying, even within this 1705 law, they're trying to segregate people by color because they do not want any intermixing. They've observed that prior to this law, about, I would say 30 to 40 years earlier, as more African people are being brought here to be enslaved, and they are intermixing with white women, and some free Black men are marrying white women, and some enslaved Black men are also marrying white women, what they become aware of is that they're producing non-white children. And so they become basically obsessed with segregating the society based on color. And so it goes on to say, and because they invoke a penalty, so you cannot purchase anyone except of your own complexion, or such as are declared slaves by this act. So anyone's declared a slave, you can purchase them, but that's still segregated, because if you're Black, you can only purchase enslaved people who are Black or of African descent. If you are Indian, you can purchase people who are of Indian descent and who are Black. But if you are white, you can purchase everyone. You can have white servants working. You can have white servants working for you. You can have white enslaved people on your plantation, etc. And so what they say, if any Negro, mulatto, or Indian, Jew, Moor, Mohammedan, or other infidel, or such as are declared slaves by this act, shall notwithstanding purchase any Christian white servant, the said servant shall ipso facto become free and acquit from any service then due. So if you are a Black person, and let's say you get your freedom, you buy it, you have a plantation, and you purchase any white Christian servant, that contract becomes null and void, because they do not want white people working on a Black plantation. And they go further and say, and if any person having such Christian servant, so any white person basically having such Christian servant shall intermarry. So if this white man or white woman marries a Black man or a Black woman or a mixed race man or mixed race woman, all of the white servants on their plantation become free. They don't want them around them, right? Because they're also sending a message. They're sending a status message that even if you are the lowest of the low, if this black man from a class or black woman from a class perspective, really black men, not black women, but black men from a class perspective, is operating their own plantation, they're well off, they're affluent, the lowest of the low, you still have more value than them based on your complexion. And so that's the one law. And then another example in that's 1705 in Virginia, and then in South Carolina in 1740, and this was called the Negro Law of 1740, Negro Act of 1740. It's a section one declares all Negroes and Indians to be slaves, the offspring to follow the condition of the mother, which was another change that they made, and that such slaves are chattel's personnel. Under this provision, it has been uniformly held that color is prima facie evidence that the party bearing the color of a Negro, mulatto, or mestizo is a slave. But the same prima facie result does not follow from the Indian color. So because Indians are in this colony at this time potentially closer to the hue and the skin coloration of European people, they are exempted from being enslaved. And they say color is prima facie evidence. So if you look like a black person or a mixed race black person or someone who is an Indian person that mixed with a black person or a mulatto person, you are automatically enslaved by this law in the colony of South Carolina. And so when I begin to find this emphasis on color and complexion and the way it's being emphasized, it led me to understand that white people have an obsession around race and racism and color, particularly on the basis of colorism. And that's also true for hair texture and featureism as well.
Wow. I had no idea. That's a lot to know. Does anybody else have any comments or questions they want to ask at this time?
I mean, these are laws that are no longer active, right?
Well, they're active in the sense that, because this is the other piece that I became aware of, when you have 400 years of this repeated in law, that shapes, think about what the function of a law does, right? It provides one with clarity around what their rights and privileges are and what they are not. So they regulate, and they're regulating culture. They're regulating cultural behaviors. They're forming the cultural psychology that these people then pass down to their children. And then as their children are growing up, you've got these types of laws continuing. So they're active in the sense that they function as culture. They're embedded into the psychology in terms of how we come to know ourselves, right? The fact that we identify today by these labels of white, black, Asian,
Right.
Or
and
other, or
would you say,
other. They also
right?
have
Or
other.
other.
hmm it serves a purpose, though. Is my larger point.
I agree with that. I work with I do healthcare applications, and I always wonder why they need to know who is applying. Like, why does that matter? Whether they're about their race, like they're applying for healthcare, but I think it's because they they use that information to know how many Latinos are applying, how many Black people are applying, how many white people are applying, and I've always had the theory that based on that information is who gets what, because only they know those numbers. So it's funny
Absolutely.
how, like, if you've never I mean, I was a single mother with two kids. I was a young single mother, and I'm Latina, so obviously, I went through it. So I never saw a white person struggling at the DHS office, ever,
hmm
ever.
Hmm.
They always get their appointments on time. They call them. Like, I feel like they make it more difficult for people of color.
For sure. For sure.
Mhm.
I can
And
tell
we
you.
give up, and we give up, and that's the problem. I think the problem is that we give up and we don't like speak up for ourselves.
Well, no, I don't think that's the problem because within the framework of a society that oppresses Black and brown people lack agency. So even when Black and brown people do speak up, they're seen as being hostile, they're
Yes,
seen as being
you're
disruptive,
right.
so they don't have the agency, right? And I say
Right.
this because I'm someone that has a lot of resources. I have a lot of, know-how and how to navigate these systems. I'm supporting my mom who's terminally ill, and it's been a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to submit complaints to the medical board. And finally, once I started doing that, the doctors, started to act right. But who deserves that type of treatment? And
Right.
who should have to go through all of those hoops to be able to do that?
Right.
So there are ways that we are so these institutions, but not just the institutions, the culture of people. And they can even be black and brown people who are socialized to be anti-black, which is what I'm going to get
Right.
into in a
Right.
second.
That's true too.
Yeah.
I have an aunt. I'm Dominican. I'm Dominican and Haitian. My grandmother was Haitian. My grandfather was
You're Afro
Dominican, and
Latina.
yes, and my grandmother was Haitian. But my grandmother would not. She was very ashamed of it because back in
Right.
her time, they would deport you back to Haiti. So she would never. Her last name was Poche, which is
Okay.
French. And when she had a stroke, I'm still on the live, Jules. She had a stroke once, and she forgot to speak Spanish. We had to get somebody that speaks Creole or French.
Hmm.
So like, and she was very like, oh yeah, she didn't like me because I'm too light. She only liked the dark grandkids, the more
Right.
dark skinned. So even within the family, that happens where
And
they,
that,
like
yes,
my daughter's lighter is darker than my son, and I can see the favoritism between that too, which is crazy.
for sure. And it's celebrated. So even, for
No.
example, one of the things that Dr. Welsing says in her work too about even mixed race or lighter skinned people who might be, for example, mixed of, let's say, African ancestry and from Spain, or African ancestry and from like Ireland or from England, right? That produces a mixed race child that presents a certain aesthetic, which previously was referred to as mulatto. Now we refer to it as biracial. Um, but there's a different psychology that lighter skinned people have because of the reinforcements that come with being lighter skinned, with having a certain hair texture, with having certain features that someone that has features and hair texturism or hair texture that is historically associated with people from the continent of Africa that are maybe pure, right? They don't receive that type of attention or value in a white supremacist system. And so she says, if you can go back to the family, just some decades ago, and this still happens now, when someone has a baby, particularly in the Black community, people want to know how light is the baby or how dark is the baby? What color are the ears? Is it light skinned? Does it have straight hair? What does the nose look like? Like they're looking at this, and even within the first year of the baby developing, people are commenting, "Oh, she's going to get lighter," or "Oh, he's going to be dark." Right? Like for that to think about that being a consideration in one's mind because of the value or lack of value that it holds. And don't let it be a Black female child that has a hair texture that is not straight and that does not mirror the standards of Eurocentrism. That child many times is isolated, is talked about, rejected. They're not seen as being as beautiful or as having the beauty standards. And even when we consider and think about, for example, Black entertainers, think about how many and how many looked different when they first got started, meaning they maybe went out and they have new hair, straight hair. They have bleached their skin or lightened their skin. They've gotten nose jobs. This is true. And I was looking at an interview with Patti LaBelle on The Breakfast Club, and she said, I was told my nose was too big. And so Stephanie Mills came to my house and she had gotten a nose job. And so I decided to get one too. And think about Michael Jackson, what he did and what he thought he had to do in order to be accepted. And there are many Nene Leakes. It's a psychology that's been built that says you should not value things that are akin to or associated with Afrocentricity. You should value things that are associated and valued through Eurocentricity, because those are the people that set the standards in this society. They set the cultural norms. And so before you know it, just 100 years later, you've got African women who, prior to the pressing comb coming out, their hair texturism was natural for the most part. Fast forward, many Black women, and I would venture to say almost most, acclimate to getting hair weaves And it's one thing to understand, hey, this is what is acceptable. I got to look presentable at my job because it is a survival tactic. But when you begin to value yourself by it, like you feel better because you've gotten your hair done and now it's straight, I would challenge people to think about and examine where that is coming from in terms of the psyche. That's a psycho-emotional response. It's a psychological response. So who else? Thank you, Queen. Who else? Oh, cousin, sorry.
No, actually, I was listening and you're right. And I could relate to what Queen was saying too, because I worked for the Housing Authority at one point, and I also worked for the Health and Human Services Department at one point. And she's right. On the application, they want to know your ethnicity and your background. And, at one point it was black, white, Hispanic, and maybe Korean or Asian descent. Now it's so many more boxes to check because they want to know if you're or more than one culture. They want to know, yeah, it's grown, and even sometimes now within our family, we're trying to figure out all of our different backgrounds and where our people come, because we know that most of them come from the West Indies Islands. On my mom's side, they weren't originally from the United States. So we've found out that we have a lot of,
And
and then
they were from Africa too, just taken to the West
right,
Indies. Yeah.
right, and that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
it goes further and further and further, and then you yourself, that's how we learned each other. That's how we found out we were cousins, through the ancestry.com and learning our history, which for the longest time I didn't know who that man was in that picture.
Wait a minute. But why? Let me just say this. This is my first cousin, and she dissed me when I first reached out to her. She was like, "Who are you? And why are you reaching out to me?" I was like, "Look, sis, this is saying that you closer to me than the first cousins I grew up with. Okay, so
Oh
something is
no.
going." But anyway, no, I love my baby. Oh, that's Sonia
I
is my
didn't even
twin.
diss you. I was just cautious.
You rejected me. But anyway, so when we go back to one of the other things that I found in my work, and I think this is very important to understand, because a lot of Black people are so caught up within the concept of slavery that they don't understand that anti-Blackness is separate than slave or an enslaved status or the enslaved class that once existed. And so as a society is being developed through the colonial period, yes, people of African descent predominantly are being enslaved, but the laws that they're writing don't just speak to the enslaved class, they speak to all Black people. And so I found thousands upon thousands upon thousands of laws. And for anyone that wants the starting point, I'm going to reference two examples. I'm going to quote again. This book, The Henning Statute at Large from Virginia, it goes through colonial statutes in Virginia, and there are different volumes of it. But I have about, I would say 15 to 20 of these books for different colonies and then different states. And then one of the first books, and this is a book that consists of multiple volumes. This is the largest book I ever saw, y'all. It's
Oh
called,
my God.
yeah.
Did you read that?
Yeah,
Oh,
I had to. That's what I'm saying.
that's crazy.
When I tell
Oh
you
my
I looked at over
God.
when I tell you I looked at over 50,000 legal examples, I I'm telling you, like years and years and years, because I became obsessed once I started getting an understanding of something that my eyes had never been open to. And so this is called Judicial Cases Concerning American Slavery and the Negro. And it shows the ways that Black people are going in and out of court because they're oppressed, but they are fighting for their rights through the 1600s, through the 1700s. So this whole narrative that you'll hear from a lot of white people, and you'll even hear from some Black people too, that white people didn't consider Black people or people of African descent human. They absolutely did. You go to court and you're suing. This traces the movement of people of African descent, Black people, in and out of the court system, fighting for their rights. And they're being oppressed day by day by day, year after year after year with these laws. So I'm going to give you an example what I was.
Wow.
Can you show the title of that book again? I
Oh
know it's
yeah,
heavy, but I'm gonna screenshot that big joker.
it's called
That's a big book.
it's called Judicial
Wow.
Cases. If you go to like Amazon, I think it's probably like $300 now. I don't know, but it's you can go to the library and have them order it too. They can order it and so that they have it on hand and you can read it there at the library because that's what I did.
Oh, what again?
It's called Judicial Cases. Sorry. So it said it's all the legal cases from the early 1600s until the formation of the United States. So it covers for about 250 years, 250, 300 years. So judicial cases concerning American slavery and the Negro. Okay.
Is
Um,
will I be able to screenshot that book if I wanted to see the title? Or is no?
I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna Google it, and I'm gonna put it
Okay.
in our
Okay. Good.
comment or on our page.
yeah.
So
So,
like, okay, go ahead.
oh, go ahead, Eric. No.
Go ahead. You ball here
Okay.
today. I got hair. You go first.
Okay, so the one example that I was going to share, this is from 1680 in Virginia, and it, again, emphasizing that the law is targeting all Black people rather than just those who were enslaved. And so it says, whereas the frequent meeting of considerable numbers of Negro slaves under pretense of feast and burials is judged a dangerous consequence. Now, and I want to stop there. Why would the meeting of Black people coming together to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or going to funerals or attending parties, why would that be judged a dangerous consequence? And it's judged that way, they're judging it that way because they understand that by enacting all of the violence that they're enacting against Black people, that these Black people are beginning to rebel. And they begin rebelling. You see it in the 1650s. You see it really more so in the 1660s as more of them begin to be imported into the colony of Virginia. And so they're saying in the front part of this law that we no longer want them to meet. We're going to outlaw them being able to come together to meet in large groups. Okay. And so it says that from and after the publication of this law, it shall not be lawful. They go on to say, it shall not be lawful for any Negro or slave to carry or arm himself with any club, staff, gun, sword, or any other weapon of defense or offense, nor to go or depart from his master's ground without a certificate from his master, mistress, or overseer, and such permission not to be granted but upon particular and necessary occasion. And every Negro, this language is so important, and every Negro or slave so offending, not having a certificate as aforesaid, shall be sent to the next constable, who is hereby enjoined and required to give the said Negro 20 lashes on his bare back, well laid on. So if I'm a free Black person and I have not gotten permission of the white person, the plantation owner, let's say I'm a servant, I'm a laborer, but not an enslaved person, I'm just working for someone, I have to have a certificate to explain and justify why I am in any given place at any given time, or else any white person can say he doesn't have proof to justify why he's here. They send me to the next constable. I've got 20 lashes on my bare back. Okay. And then they go on to say, and it is further enacted by the authority aforesaid that if any Negro or other slave shall presume or lift up his hand in opposition against any Christian, and the way that they're using that term in this law is any European white person, because those are the people that are considered Christian during this time. Most people coming from the colonies of Africa, West Africa, were not Christian. And that became very clear to me too. They didn't have that practice over in the West African countries. So that is a new development or a new cultural tenet that becomes part of the African experience or identity, the West African experience or identity, as they are being imported here into the North American continent and colonies. And so they say, if you lift up your hand to defend yourself against any white person and any Black person, free or enslaved, shall for every such offense upon due proof made thereof by just the word of the white person, so it doesn't even have to be true or real. And as I study this, I'm going, oh my God, so a white woman or a white man can say, I felt threatened. The black person looked at me weird. The black person made a movement. And so it sounds like the police. Yes. And so what you have here is the perspective of white people being in white suspicion, being merged within the legal context, right? That's powerful. When I can drive the reaction of the people who are empowered to enforce the law based on my perception. And so what I also came away with, and this goes back to Dr. Wilson's work, Dr. Cress-Welsing's work, Dr. Bobby Wright, is that white people operate in cognitive distortion and they operate in paranoia, in fear all the time. And so many of the reasons why black people are put in jail or in trouble is because a white person projected something based on their feelings and made it true, even though that was not happening. I've known situations working in human resources management where a white person alleges that a black person is misbehaving, exhibiting some form of misconduct, and that black person is fired from their jobs. Meanwhile, Becky and Steve and Brad, they can violate all of the code of conduct, they can underperform, and they are not held accountable in the same way. So white suspicion becomes enshrined into the law. Okay. And so it says, if you lift up your hand to that white person and they believe that you intended to do some harm, they can have you subjected to 30 lashes on your bare back. Okay. So this is part of the Negro Insurrection Act of 1680. The last part of this law says, and it is hereby further enacted by the authority aforesaid that if any Negro or other slave shall absent himself from his master's service and lie hid and lurking in obscure places, committing injuries to the inhabitants, and shall resist any person or persons that shall by any lawful authority be employed to apprehend and take the said Negro, that then in case of such resistance. And so what they're calling fear and black people running away because they are being attacked by sociopaths and psychopaths within this new experience that they're in, and they're being flogged and beaten, and they're seeing their young daughters raped. They're seeing their mother's sisters raped. They're seeing their young sons raped and sodomized. So who would not run away from that, right? So they begin to run away. And so they say, if the black person resists, the person that's employed to bring them back under the rulership of the white people that are going to enact all of this harm on them, right? Plantations owner, could be a master, could be a mistress. It shall be lawful for such person or persons to kill the said Negro or slave so lying out and resisting. It shall be lawful to, it doesn't matter if you are enslaved or free. You can kill the black person with impunity. It's being written into the law. And that this law be once every 6 months, hear me, published at the respective county courts and parish churches within this colony. So when you go to church, you're hearing about a new law that says you can murder black people with impunity if they resist you recovering them. If you suspect that they're going to raise their hand and do harm to you, you can have them subjected to 30 lashes on their back. If they don't have their certificate to prove that they should be in any given place at any given time, that you can have them subjected to 20 lashes. And then after that, these people bow their heads, they pray, and they take communion.
Remember that? Do you remember the law that stated that women of color is allowed to be raped, and it's allowed because of their shape?
Well, so I would say
it was stated that because their body is built for it.
Well,
go ahead.
Those didn't necessarily come through laws. They came through judicial rulings, and so
that's why to this day, so many men of color still disrespect black women, and they don't understand how hard the women had it. I just wanted to put that out there, letting you ladies I know about y'all history. That's why I treasure y'all. So therefore, I want 3 guys from each one of y'all. Now I'm mute.
So when as I mentioned, I'm looking at hundreds to now thousands of these types of laws that just repeat over and over and over again that you can murder Black people with impunity. And to Eric's point, judicial rulings, for example, the Celia ruling in 1855, when she murdered her master, Robert Newsom, and she was represented in court in Missouri by this white man named John Jameson, who really fought for her. He did. And there's a book called Celia a Slave that goes over her story. You should get that book too. It's incredible. But the white judge, William Augustus Hall, he told the jury, the instruction that he gave to the jury basically is if Newsom was in the habit of having intercourse with her, and she was his slave, that was his right. So if he was in the habit of raping her, she shouldn't have responded. She shouldn't have reacted. She shouldn't have killed him. And so he sentenced her to death. There's another ruling by the Mississippi State Supreme Court in 1859, where they say that because Black people, in general, Black men and women, are promiscuous, but they're alluding really to Black females, that the rape of this 9-year-old girl who was raped by a Black male slave on a plantation in Mississippi, that it's not considered rape because Black females are innately promiscuous. They're innately promiscuous. So the Mississippi State Supreme Court says that Black women, because they are promiscuous, they can't be raped. So the crime of rape is not a crime when the person in question is a Black female, whether it's a young girl or a woman, right? That is also repeated by the Florida State Supreme Court in 1918, right? 30 what? What is that? 53 years after the institution of slavery is abolished, right? We got our grandparents being born around this time. Florida State Supreme Court says, well, Black women come from an immoral race, so they can't prove chastity because they like to engage sexually. So the crime of rape, we can only consider the crime of rape if it pertains to a white woman. So this is repeated ongoing. And then what I also found is they're creating, it is, May, it's absolutely insane. They're creating scientific theories to back up. So they're making up theories, just like they make up theories today, ADHD, neurodivergence, all of it depends on the mass agreement of white men and white women who run these institutions, and then they economize it, and then they train everybody. Oh, you're going to be in the profession of a clinical therapist, so you've got to administer these labels, and here's how you apply them to people and all of that. Anyway, they make up theories back in the 1700s and the 1800s around Black people having lower lung capacity. So therefore, we should be enslaved because if we remain in slavery, we can work up our lung capability. They say that our brains are smaller or have less bumps on them. So that demonstrates to their mind or to their observation that we're timid people. So we deserve to be ruled by people. They also say that because of the way we look, we have bad character. And they begin to create scientific justifications. And those scientific justifications then lead into public policy. Because what white people begin to say in the 1900s is that we need to silo Black people off into ghettos because we've proven that they are inferior and we can get rid of them in 100 years if we limit their access to healthcare, make sure that they're not able to access the healthcare system, and if we put them in ghettos. And there are 2 books that speak to this. One is Race Traits and Tendencies of the American Negro by this anthropologist, this white guy who's a psychopath, but his name is Dr. Irving Fisher, and a statistician by the name of David Hoffman. They wrote that book together, and that's in 1896. And in 1915, this book, The Passing of the Great Race by Madison Grant. What they begin to do, the Supreme Court, they rule in 1926, okay, yeah, Black people should live separately. So we're going to legalize racial restrictive covenants that say only white people can live in these homes, and we're going to legalize racial zoning ordinances. There are 2 cases, Corrigan v. Buckley, 1926, that has to do with racial restrictive covenants. Euclid v. Ambler has to do with zoning. So they hatched a plan basically to ensure that they could kill us. It's a genocidal plan. And so when I located Dr. Bobby Wright's work around the psychopathic racial personality, this really clicked for me based on what I had already located. I'm like, oh my God, he's right. So he says in his work, in their relationship with the Black race, whites are psychopaths, and their behavior represents an underlying biologically transmitted proclivity with roots deep in their evolutionary history. The psychopath is an individual who is constantly in conflict with other persons or groups. He is unable to experience guilt, is completely selfish and callous, and has a total disregard for the rights of others. One of the best methods that can be used to measure the psychopathic traits of the white race is observing and analyzing their universal overt behaviors and attitudes towards Blacks. Psychopaths simply ignore the concept of right and wrong. By ignoring this trait in the white race, the lack of ethical and moral development, Blacks have made and are still making a tragic mistake in basing the worldwide Black liberation movement on moral suasion. He said you cannot persuade psychopaths with morality. He says it is pathological for Blacks to keep attempting to use moral suasion on a people who have no morality, where race is the variable. And so this led me to a further examination that, okay, so if these people have been responsible for the standards that we as Black people subscribe to, that we uphold, that we subscribe to ourselves, and that we ascribe to others, and that we cater to, then we too have been trained to be psychopathic towards Black people as well. And I started just kind of going into spaces where I sat in rooms and I would listen to the commentary that would start to happen about Black women or Black men or Black boys and Black girls. And if I started to time it, and it would be like within 10 minutes, some negative comment would be made about a Black woman or Black women in general, or a Black man or Black men in general, or why Black children are not doing well and Black children are bad and so is bad. All of these derogatory concepts. And so I'll give that to you as homework. Just go in a space with Black people and just start to observe and listen to what's coming out of their mouths about themselves and about each other and their opinions. And they're all rooted in Eurocentric standards, right? And the one example I had given when I've gone to educational conferences is how when our children don't do well within the educational standard, we attach that to their value and we begin to treat them in ways many times that are unsupportive, where we erode their self-esteem and their self-confidence because we equate their value and their self-worth to what has been defined as intellect for us. And if that child is not getting it, then people's minds will often begin to go to what is wrong with you and what is wrong with them. Not that we don't go to, oh, maybe something wrong with the teacher. Maybe the teacher is not as effective. Maybe they're just not interested in the subject matter because it's a boring subject that's just interesting, right? But when we begin to feel bad about our children because they don't do well within the structures and the frameworks of Eurocentricity, we reinforce white supremacy as well. That's a whole different conversation though. Anyway, questions, thoughts?
Well, to me, it sounds like everything that you were talking about back in those in that time is still happening today. It's just happening in a different form.
Yeah. And I don't think that there's necessarily been changes. I think to your point, cousin, it's transformed. It shows up differently, right?
It shows up differently, yeah.
And one of the ways that it showed up differently, because going back to Dr. Chris Welsing, she says the compensatory behavioral practices of white supremacy infiltrate, and she pulled this from Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., but all areas of what are called people activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And I think many Black people have this misconception that as laws changed, people got opportunity and things begin to be better. And that's just not the case. And so when I begin to look at the transition from excluding Black people using the institution of legality, the institution of law, and how laws were written to exclude Black people from certain spaces, places, opportunities, etc., that then, once the white middle class was built, it transitioned from things being about illegality to now we're going to make it legal, Sonia, for you to be able to live in that neighborhood over there, but you won't be able to afford it. So it's no longer about illegality. It then became about unaffordability. And most Black people don't understand the politics of economics, or what Dr. Amos Wilson calls the psychoeconomics. White Supremacy Psychoeconomics.
I got a couple of things out there that really resonated in the presentation, and I'm really appreciating what you're sharing with us this evening. One is, as you said, the laws have changed, but the mentality hasn't.
That's right.
And I would like you to, when you get a moment, to elaborate on my origins are from South Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And within our own race, there are barriers between the light people of color and the dark people of color.
You got it.
I remember, I think I might have been middle school freshman, found myself one of my first called myself Loves. I didn't know that the fact that she was light skinned had something to do with it until a Sunday when she invited me over to meet her family. And the mom got up and walked out of the room when I came into the home. And the mom called her and she came back 5 minutes later and said, "You have to leave because my parents say that you are too dark to be my friend." And that town and that area still exists today. So I guess my question to you is, has the mindset, is it looked at differently even now when people of our own color, how we look at and how we actually portray one another? And the reason I say that is when I remember even as early as the 1990s to 2000, when you said, we have a suspect that we're looking for. We don't have a photo of him, but what's the suspects? And law enforcement were looking for a black male between heights 5'8" and 6'2", dark skin, preferably wearing a hoodie, saggy pants, and some Timberlands. That's what we were going to bring in. That's where our starting point was. Mm-hmm. Even 3 or 4 years ago, as I used to spend some time as a trainer in the school system, in Louisiana, there were laws saying that young black men could not wear dreads, twists, or braids of any kind because it was too much of an African culture being exemplified by them. So to go to school, they had to have their hair cut, or they had to have something that was in a position that was considered to be modest or reasonable. So
Absolutely.
So it was those things that resonated with me. But in reference to our own people, when we look at ourselves, how has that affected us? Because I think there is a dynamic where we kind of put our own statuses based on color, tone, shape, and things like that nature. And I'll listen up.
Well, yeah, and DC, thank you so much for just kind of amplifying those points, because that's essentially what I was have been explaining in our subscription to Eurocentrism and white supremacy and whiteness. I'll call it whiteness. We subscribe to whiteness, and it comes out in all of the ways that you named, right? So if we go back, for example, I like to quote from past presidents. So one, Thomas Jefferson, and this is from his notes on the state of Virginia. He says, "I advance it, therefore, as a suspicion only, that the blacks, whether originally a distinct race or made distinct by time and circumstances, are inferior to the whites in the endowments both of body and mind." Think about not just what he's saying, but that thought is occupying his mind, and that is not a statement of fact at all. That's a statement of his impression of how he perceives Black people, based on the relationship, the psychological relationship that's been built for him. He only knows Black people or people of African descent in a status that is oppressed based on the positions that we've occupied here in this country. Thomas Jefferson and his people have never been in touch with Black people in positions of power, because that's just not been a part of their reality for the last, I would say, 500, 600 years. It was a reality in Spain when the Moorish people ruled in Spain from the 700s into the 15th century. But yeah, it's a cognitive distortion that he is projecting. President Abraham Lincoln in 1858, during his senatorial debate, when I think he was running for president, he was a senator at the time, but he says, "I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and Black races, that I am not, nor ever have been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. And I will say, in addition to this, that there is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. And inasmuch as they cannot so live, while they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior, and I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. So think about what he's saying. I know that inherently we are not superior. I'm concerned with it. I'm concerned with our placement versus this other group of people. And I am so concerned with it that we need to ensure that we do everything to assign superiority to ourselves in the ways that we enable rights and privileges for people who we deem white versus those that we deem black. So it's a situation. They're situating black people in conditions of oppression. And so the mindset that black people then adopt is an oppressive mindset. It's an oppressive mindset in every way, so that when, for example, you're given freedom because you've been locked away in sex labor camps and made to procreate and work for free and be whipped and beaten, and freedom just not having to be able to do that again becomes, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, that's a standard for oppressed people, right? And think about the ways that black people many times like to say, I'm the first black person in my family to go to college. That's not a badge of honor or anything to celebrate. That is an indication of just how oppressed you've been. But not only that, the fact that we value a Eurocentric framework of education so much that we begin to build status from it and deem it as something of value. I'm the first black mayor. I look at the first black president. Like, it's from a place of desperation, and it's from a place of low standards. Because as one of my African friends said to me, if we existed in a cultural context where black people ran the institutions, created the policies, created the standards and norms, there would be no need to celebrate that. He says, I grew up in a place in Ghana where everyone was black. So there was no need to celebrate the first black man. Everybody's black. All the teachers are black. All the politicians are black. All the people. So, it's from a place of desperation. And so when you've been one of the things that dawned on me is that we've never known ourselves as black people outside of the condition of oppression. We've always been oppressed within the white American experience. White people have ruled all of our institutions. So that's how we come to know each other, and that's how they come to know us. And so they always expect that we appear nice, that we are subservient, that we are docile, that we don't do anything to trigger their discomfort in any way. And going back to what DC said, there were 4 cases where black women were fired from their jobs between, I think, 2010 and like 2015 or 2017. And the Supreme Court refused to hear the case because they said that those black women, I think 1 or 2 of them, maybe all of them, had like dreads or were wearing their natural hair to work, and they got fired because of it. And what the Supreme Court rejected the case on was these women should acquiesce to the professional standards of these institutions, right? When we look at Daryl George, which you all are probably familiar with, the young boy that was suspended several times in the Barbers Hill School District down in Texas because they said that he needed to cut his dreadlocks. The length of his hair was too long. That's not what it was. It was because he had dreadlocks, right? Because if you have a white child, a white male coming to school with their hair long, the texture of their hair is accepted in this society. But think about the fact that they were willing to destroy this boy's life unless he acquiesced and was forced to assimilate and accepted what they were trying to force him and his family to do. The other young girl, Faith Finity, this was back in like 2016, I think. maybe later than that, but 2018, I think, 2018 or 2019. Anyway, Faith Finity, they changed the hair policy. Her mother did her hair in braids. When I was growing up, they called them dookie braids. It was in a nice style, very neat, but they changed the hair policy. They didn't want her wearing hair extensions to school. I mean, just total humiliation, right? And just think about what I'm saying, right? And I also want you to think about it within the context of our children are being humiliated and destroyed psycho-spiritually, psycho-emotionally. And then we say they should get good grades. And we don't understand why little Michelle might have been primed and coerced into becoming a teen prostitute. We don't understand why little Rayshawn has dropped out of school, doesn't want to go because he's being mistreated by the teacher. He's got everybody criticizing him. He sees the white children being approached with belief and understanding, and he's being approached with unbelief and hostile treatment. And we say, oh, but you should measure up. You should do this. It's just impossible. And there's an article that I quote in my second book, well, really the first and second book, where you've got this white man by the name of John Corcoran, and he's probably in his 60s or 70s when he writes this story. But the article says the title of the article is "I was a teacher for 17 years, but I couldn't read or write." I was a teacher for 17 years, but I couldn't read or write. Because within the society of white supremacy, white people can't really do anything wrong. And so they can be inadequate, they can be mediocre, and it's never brought to the forefront. There's a hyper focus on Black inadequacy, Black inferiority. Why aren't Black children performing? Why aren't Black people measuring up to the standards of white people? No one's telling you that little Jimmy is being passed and little Jimmy doesn't know how to read. And Jimmy's white. Little Rebecca, she stole the answers to the science test and she got all A's. And what's being reported statistically is that look at how white children are performing within the educational system, and people are passing them through. And so John Corcoran writes in this article, I was a teacher for 17 years, but I couldn't read or write. At teacher conferences, my teacher told my parents, he's a smart boy, he'll get it. And they moved me on to the 3rd grade. He's a smart boy, he'll get it. And they moved me on to the 4th grade. He's a smart boy, he'll get it. And they moved me on to the 5th grade. He says, but I wasn't getting it. He didn't get it so much that when he got into college, and he writes this in the article as well, he began to break into his professors' offices to steal answers to tests. He did all of these things, could not demonstrate performance around literacy, and became an educator and was in the profession for 17 years. Because within the framework and the cultural context in which we live, you can be white and mediocre, inadequate, which is why you can have a 34 count admitted convicted felon, an admitted sexual predator, someone who can't even string along 5 coherent sentences together, be reelected to become the president of the United States. And so I begin saying to Black people, stop working yourselves to death. Stop trying so hard. Stop thinking that you're trying to measure up to standards that these people over here don't have to measure up to. It's not even a double standard. There are no standards on the other side. And I've seen it because I've worked at the highest levels within some of the organizations that I've worked with in human resources management and in leadership. So my work is a combination of academic research, but also experiential research, just understanding what we have to go through as Black people, understanding my own life, etc. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much.
No, you're fine. I was just trying to figure out what did he teach for 17 years if he couldn't read or write?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, what could he have possibly been teaching the students all this time?
But what's incredible about this is he's saying, even within the face of my inability to demonstrate performance, to demonstrate that I was literate, my teacher still said, he's a smart boy, he'll get it. He was being approached with belief. Which Black child do we ever say that about when they come home and they've gotten F's or they can't read? Do we still say, oh, Rayshawn is a smart boy, he's going to get it? No. We begin to take on the most derogatory feelings and impressions about Black children. And so we have to understand the psycho-spiritual aspects of our society that makes it so that Black children are beat down so much and white children are affirmed and raised in their inadequacy, in their misbehavior, in their misconduct, that you could go to the president, you could go to the US Capitol with guns and threaten lawmakers and still be given pardons. And meanwhile, we're around here talking about, well, you know, so-and-so did a home invasion. I can't. I cannot even begin to have a conversation. And again, I wrote an article about like what happened to P. Diddy and R. Kelly and Bill Cosby. Not that they shouldn't have been held accountable, but here now we see a worldwide pedophile ring being ran by white men. Trump's name is mentioned in the Epstein files over 1 million times. And there's no accountability. And so when I think about this, and I'll just give you another example, I'm going to talk about this I'm not going to say too much because I'm going to talk about it on Sunday the 15th. I'm doing a free webinar about my book. But when you think about when the United States began to form and the laws that they created around basically child marriage, and they lowered the age for young girls to be married to age 10 in essentially every state. And in the state of Delaware, it went as low as 7 years old. And so this proclivity that has been sanctioned, that has been built in, that I believe is neurobiological and epigenetic, has been traveling through the Eurocentric world for centuries, right? Because you have back in the century of the year 1275 over in England, white men creating standards of the law where young girls could be married as low as 12 years old. And then in the year 1800, once the US forms, those ages are being lowered to 10 years old. So pedophilia, right, is a psycho-legal, psychocultural, psychomoral tenet. They believe that it is okay to have sex and to violate young children. And that also is something that Black women and young Black girls begin to suffer as we are integrated into this very violent, heinous, destructive society. Because you've got young Black girls' bodies being prostituted and turned into human factories, right? Their vaginas and their uteruses are being monetized because every offspring that they have is to produce labor for the most part, right? They to reproduce the labor force. So you've got demonization and destruction of the Black body for profit and for political purposes. This is the political position that you occupy. The political position that you occupy in this society is that we use you and your bodies as sex factories. And no one ever talks about this, but also the way that Black men and Black boys were used to rape Black girls and women. They were locked in rooms with them. And if you go through the slave narratives, which I also had to look at, right? There's also a book called Slave Breeding. It cites some of the commentaries and some of the interviews that took place of formerly enslaved people during the 1930s. But if you go to the direct slave narratives, Black men are talking about how they're being taken advantage of by white women and being made to have sex with white women against their will, how they're being locked in rooms with Black girls and Black women to rape them. And it's usually the young ones that are the moistest, and how their fathers are being given rewards and awards for being locked in rooms with, let's say, 10 women and raping all of them and seeing who can get pregnant. They're also commenting on the ways that white men would sit back and like to watch Black males raping Black females, and how the white masters would sometimes join in. And the other piece in the example of that Mississippi State Supreme Court ruling in 1859, they say that the regulations of sex, the regulations of intercourse, are regulated by each plantation owner. in Mississippi. That means that on this plantation, if we want to have sex parties and orgies and gang rapes, that's permissible. On this plantation, if we want to sodomize young boys as early as 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they're in charge of the law. They're in charge of the sexual intimacies that go on. And you hand that type of power to individuals based on their race. It's diabolical. It's absolutely diabolical. So when I begin to find all of this, I begin to use the works of the Black clinical theorists that I mentioned earlier to create some definitions based on what they were saying in their work. So psychopathy in my book is defined as the behavioral and affective engine of white supremacy. It represents the chronic compulsion of white people to assert dominance over Black and other non-white peoples as a means of affirming existence. They have to do this in order to have any sense of self-worth or collective value. Clinically, white psychopathy functions as a dependency disorder. The white psyche's self-worth depends upon the subjugation of others. Oppression becomes the psychic drug of the dominant class, necessary to sustain the illusion of control and coherence. This psychopathy expresses itself in law, medicine, religion, education, entertainment, everything, as the rational exercise of authority. Yet beneath these structures lies a shared neurotic core, the inability to experience humanity without hierarchy. The white subject's pleasure principle is rooted in domination. The sight of Black suffering reaffirms its sense of being. Thus, white psychopathy is not deviation, but doctrine, the emotional infrastructure of Western civilization. Thoughts, questions?
That's a lot to process. Anybody have any questions or comments they want to make at this time?
You're going to have to come back next week and take my questions. Gotta write them down. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Tap the screen. This is invaluable information, Dante. Thank you for your research.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I learned a lot. I also learned a lot. Thank you.
I'm going to shut up right now, though, because I can talk all night about my work.
I can too. I want, they pass it on.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Athena.
No, Eric was saying something.
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't have a question. I was just agreeing with you to continue to talk all night. So I enjoyed listening to you. But I did have a question earlier though. But you said I was asking, have they changed the laws for Black people, or are we still living unknowingly under these laws?
We are, and that's what I document in both Diagnosing Whiteness, but also my newest book, The Psychopathy of Whiteness, because we're told just kind of this sanitized version of Black people were, I'll give you an example. And I really take this to task in books 2 and 3, but we're told the sanitized version of history, which is really not true. So therefore we find ourselves living in a delusion because we think that just because, 3.9 million formerly enslaved people were given freedom and their offspring were given freedom, and then they were given citizenship under the 14th Amendment in 1868, and then the 15th Amendment in 1870, the right to vote, that things changed and things got better. What we don't learn in school, and I feel like we're in a period right now that's similar to the 1870s, but by in 1870, 1871, there were 2 laws that were put in place to protect Black people who had been given citizenship and were trying to vote and buy property and become entrepreneurs. And white people became very, very, very incited. They became more than jealousy. They became enraged, right? And so they began to rally. They began to go out and lynch Black people en masse. So these 2 laws are put in place as domestic anti-terrorism laws. One of them is called the Force Act of 1870, The other law is called the Ku Klux Klan Act, which prohibited groups like the Ku Klux Klan, other white extremist groups from violating Black people. Okay. By 1876, in the Cruikshank versus United States ruling, Cruikshank, because there was what is it called? There's a massacre in Louisiana, a famous massacre. Somebody will know what I'm talking about. My brain is kind of failing me right now. I'm tired. But because of that massacre, that case makes its way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. Anyhow, the Supreme Court ends up overturning the Force Act of 1870 by saying that Congress had no right to pass a law protecting Black people everywhere, or saying that Black people should be able to get refuge or protection from the federal government. This should be left up to each state. So they overturned that law. By 1883, in United States v. Harris, another case that makes its way up to the Supreme Court overturns that law. They overturned the Force Act of 1871, the Ku Klux Klan Act. So what happens as a result of this? The Supreme Court rules, and you've got white people all over the place just going out and lynching Black people. And now Black people are no longer protected. And so there is photography. There's a book called Without Sanctuary. I have it around here somewhere. I got hella books. But anyway, there's a book called Without Sanctuary. It's a lynching book that tells the stories of hundreds of people that were lynched, and it shows their pictures and their names, and also how those lynchings were photographed and sold as postcards. Okay.
Oh.
They were sold as postcards. And so you've got psychotic, sociopathic, psychopathic structure and vileness that is targeted toward people of African descent, Black people, and there's no protection. Okay. And Black people during this time, when they got citizenship, they thought, we're going to have Black governors, we're going to have Black president. It's 2026, and we've not even had 10 Black governors in the whole history of this country. Okay, there's only one in the country now, and that's Governor Westmore. California, the state where I'm from, has never had a Black governor. Okay, so we have to understand. Again, let me stop myself. So Black people during that time, the 1870s, they thought we're going to have Black governors, we're going to have Black presidents. So they passed all these laws, the Public Accommodations Bill of 1875. Black people can now sit on juries, and they can, be accepted or admitted into public spaces, public accommodations. They can use the bathrooms. They can, use the same water fountains, all of these things. Okay. They can ride on the bus or in the train car along with white people. And guess what? You had 5 affluent Black families, some upper middle class, some rich. 5 cases brought before the Supreme Court in 1883, and the Supreme Court overturns the Public Accommodations Bill of 1875, and they say in that ruling, it is not Congress's role to outlaw racial discrimination. And so that paved the way for the 1896 Plessy v. Ferguson ruling, which led to separate but equal. Okay? And so when you have your freedom or the concept of citizenship bestowed upon you by the very people who have oppressed you, they can decide to take it away at any point. And they can decide to change the terms of that freedom. So they can decide to not employ you. They can decide to fire you. They can decide to only hire you within the lowest classification of jobs. They can decide to fail you because they have a bad impression of you. They can decide to pull you over. They can decide to do any and everything to destroy your lives.
And if you know that's what they're doing now, if you know that's what they started doing.
Bingo. And that is why, to Athena's question, in my latest book, I lay out a whole, dozens of court rulings between the 1960s and the 2020s that serve to erode the rights of Black people in every way, in every way. And you'll find we've never been free. And so the standards that you've been holding mom and dad and grandpa and grandpa and grandma to, that they should have been more responsible, they should have done better. You have no analysis, no realistic analysis on what they have been through and what they've had to navigate. And so we look down upon ourselves because we only see a certain few making it through the door, as though opportunities within a white supremacist context were meant for everyone to have equality. That's just not the reality of the situation.
Wow.
You know, that's some real good stuff that you have there, Dante. And it was called the Opelousas Massacre in Louisiana. This was in 1868 through 1875, where it was a moment of reconstruction, where people that became free, began to start. They had Black Republicans then that were going to start building and reconstructing and reinvesting in the communities. And it was the white Democrats at that time. Obviously, things have flipped party-wise, but there was up to 300 deaths in that massacre period of time. And they found the perpetrators. Not one was sentenced and not one was condemned or convicted for any of those murders.
That's right. The Colfax Massacre, because what they did was, you can consider it the first January 6th. The white people submitted a fake board of electors, right? They said, okay, these are the people, the Republican Party and the Fusion Party, they voted a mixed group of people into power, some of which who were Black people. Guess what? We don't want to exist under white rule. And so they put forth their own electors. And when the Black men gathered around the county offices, right, on the day that people were to take office, they went and shot them to death.
That's right.
They murdered them. And so from that massacre in 1873, the Colfax Massacre, which is what the Cruikshank case was from, that case made its way to the Supreme Court of the United States in 1876. But this idea that laws are static and laws protect people's rights, the people that could create the laws, and Dr. Amos Wilson said this, so I'm just repeating him, the people that create the laws can decide to change those laws at any time, or decide to not enforce those laws at any time, which is why people keep saying, we can't believe what Trump is doing. White people created this place. And when you have the mass agreement of white people who are backing you up when you decide not to abide by the law becomes futile. It is of no value at all whatsoever. And we also have to understand that the new genocide or genocidal effect is AI, will be AI. White people in power are concerned about profit. They've never been concerned about humanity. And so you have AI, which right now can, at this moment, replace 18 million of 151 million jobs. MIT did a study. That's 11.7% of the labor force.
Yep.
Think about people that you may have heard recently. I can't find work. I got fired from my job. That's because your education is only relevant for a particular point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are in Gen X, in the millennial generation, to a degree, weren't educated to support an AI technological boom and globalization around it. People, even right now, who are going through college are finding that they can't find jobs. 25% of people who hold a bachelor's degree right now cannot find a job in the workforce because they are replacing some white-collar tasks and some white-collar jobs with functional AI applications and resources. So my work, it covers a lot of different areas, and it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. It's a historical analysis, but it's a sociocultural and sociohistorical, psychohistorical, and psychocultural analysis, because it doesn't just deal with history, but it deals with history as context in terms of how we have gotten to the place where we are today. And so I examine decade by decade, really from the early 1600s through the 2000s, laws and policies that were put in place to erode the rights of Black people.
We definitely appreciate your research. I mean, this is a lot of information, and it's a lot of valuable information. Some of these things I don't think I thought that deep into, but it's good to hear and good to know moving forward. And you're right about AI. AI has taken over everything, like pretty much everything. Does anybody else have any comments, any questions they want to ask at this time?
But I'll wait. I forgot. I forgot 2 questions. But oh well.
I'll be right back. I'm so sorry. I'm having a conversation with my daughter. I'm so sorry. I'll be right back. Thank you.
But I know in the military when they were doing all of that. Go ahead.
Who's mic? Nisha, I think it's your mic. Can you mute your mic real quick? Okay, there she go. Go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Eric. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I love how you call me Mr. Eric. You can call me Eric though, or handsome, or good looking, but the Mr. can get dropped if you like.
Don't be flirting with
But
me, Captain. No.
I was not flirting. I was just trying to state a fact. You can drop. No, I'm joking. Just a little flirt here and there. Damn. What was I saying? I think she did that on purpose. I forgot what I was saying. Ain't that a trip? Man, I forgot. Give me for real.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any comments? Welcome up, K-Love. Do you have any comments? Anything you want to share with us?
Yes, I just want to say that I love it here. It's such a thought-provoking and informative live. And I'm just like, I marvel at your work and I would love to purchase your books to support. And I'm just happy that there's a platform where we can talk about these things because so many of our people they buy into the white supremacist movement about not talking about it and saying that, it's over with and the brainwashing that happens in our community. It's just such a multifaceted topic. It's heart-wrenching and it's disturbing of what has happened to our people and also what continues to happen. And what's even more hurtful is how, some of us, we buy into that. And we think it's old and we don't want to talk about it. And a lot of us they try to bully you when you talk about it and you try to inform them about these things. So I'm just so happy to have found you all. I feel like I found my group here. So thank you. Thank you for the work you do. And thank you all.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to really appreciate you for speaking in this space because that is so affirming to hear what you just said. I have been in spaces with Black people who, have not done any sustained study or research on the topic, but who just get upset at me and get mad. Why are you saying X, Y, Z? That's not the truth. And it's like, I don't argue with people about what I understand because there's no need. And people deserve to have their feelings. They do. But I'm not always affirmed when I come into spaces. For the most part, I am. For the most part, most Black people rock with what I'm saying, and they begin to go, oh my God, wow, I've never considered this, or this is me, or this was in my family. Most people are very thoughtful, but some people just get angry, and particularly around the religious piece, because we have been so duped into Eurocentric Christianity and religion, even not understanding how, the protest religions, the Protestant religions, such as, the Baptist Church, which was started by a white man, Presbyterianism, the AME Church, those religions developed in the 1600s here. I'm talking about within the North American continent. And the doctrines from those religions developed here, and they were produced, or really over in England, but they also made their way here, and some were produced by the Romans, and we understand that the Catholic Church, but how the Catholic Church produced the Church of England, and then the Church of England began to produce what became the protest religions, the Protestant religions, and how we subscribe to these religions as though they've always been around and they've just been, around for centuries. And it gets very touchy when I reveal certain aspects around Christianity. For example, the Maryland Toleration Act, which was a law in 1649 that was implemented in the colony of Maryland, where they said that, if you don't subscribe to Christianity, we will kill you, and then we will take all your family's assets and distribute them to the Lord Governor, the governor of the colony, etc. So, it was forced upon people, and then the conversion laws in 1667. And one of the reasons why a lot of African people began to buy in Christianity within the English context back in the colonial period is because it came along with the condition of freedom. If you were of a Christian label and you got a license that came with it, or certificate papers, you became free. And so, but what the legislature in Virginia did in 1667, for example, is they said there are too many people of African descent, too many Black people being made free through being baptized, through being given Christianity. So we're going to still allow for them to be baptized, but we're going to change the law so that they will no longer be free. And that's a law in 1667 that says baptism no longer permits the condition of freedom, right? But this Christianity thing that's been done to us, and the way that a lot of Black people hold on to it, it's frightening. It is so frightening. And I'm not here to preach against what anyone believes or anyone's religion, but I'm just saying, if you go back and you do the research and you locate how we came to know these different sects of religion, it came through, again, our domination. It was a way to dominate people, because once you take on someone's religion, you take on their doctrine, you take on their thought process, you take on their behaviors, customs, everything. It's a form of conditioning. And that's true for legality, it's true for education, it's true for entertainment, etc.
That's a good point. I wanted to say, you were saying something a minute ago, and I wanted to say that it appears that majority of the years that our culture has lived in this country under the rule, that most of the things that we abide by or conform to is a survival tactic. It's been a way of us surviving through all of the oppression and all of the I lost my word, but you know where I'm going with it. So it became a survival tactic. So we just conformed to whatever it is we needed to in order to make it to whatever place we needed to go.
For sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's interesting. And I've heard that. Go ahead.
The problem became for me, and I'm just going to speak for myself, is that, while it's a survival tactic to go to school, to get a good job, to promote, I found myself in my mid to late 20s, early 30s, aligning my identity with it. I was proud that I had become the manager of a bank by 26. I was proud that I was making this much money, and I formed a status out of it. And the thing that broke me down was when that institution began to discriminate against me, and I went against them and sued them, and I had been there for 13 years since I was a child, and I no longer had that to identify by. I lost my self-confidence. I lost everything about myself because I had created an identity out of the decorations that are the design of this society, right? So you go to school, you get a bachelor's degree, you're taught, go to school, get that degree, you'll get a good job. It's a symbol of status, right? I went out and spent $25,000, $30,000 on a master's degree, and I will never forget the day of my graduation. I had my family there, my mother there, my godmother there, my brother, sister, and I felt good. I mean, I'm sorry, they all felt good, rather. They all felt good. We coming to celebrate Tay. I'm standing in that room and like, I just spent $30,000 fucking dollars and don't feel any smarter than I did than the day that I entered the goddamn program. So, and don't get me wrong, I did learn how to engage in critical thinking. So it was not because it set me on the path to do all the research that I've done and to have the experiences that I've done. So I honor those experiences now. But most people are not honoring them for that reason. They're honoring them because, yeah, I got access. They're honoring them because of what it represents in this society. And they get to be the big bad wolf, right? But then when they no longer have it, think about what happens when you have to file bankruptcy and you've made mid six figures or you were a multimillionaire. Some people have committed suicide.
Oh my God. I said that before, being a general contractor. We've had this conversation before. When I started my business, I was making big money. I had good money in that bank, but I've also had some big negatives in that bank as well. So yeah, I could understand that. I definitely could relate to that part.
Can I say
Mr.
one
Oh,
other
go
thing?
ahead.
If you all can go to my website and just subscribe, it's danteking.com, www.danteking, DanteKing.com, and subscribe. If you want to buy a book, that is great. I would really appreciate it. You can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble online, any of the online platforms, and just type in Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness. That book is available now. And then on the 24th, the ebook version of The Psychopathy of Whiteness is available for pre-order right now. And then the paperback and the hard copy will be available on the 24th of February.
Okay, I don't know if I don't know if I had that on the promo or not. I don't even know if I had it correct. But all that information will be sure to also post that on all of our social media platforms, along with the website, guys. So you can all follow Dante. He's also on Facebook and Instagram as well. So be sure to follow him on the live, and follow him on his other social media platforms. We have 15 minutes left in the live. I want to give everybody an opportunity to say something. Please keep your comments type kind of short, because I want to end the live on time tonight. We will have Dante back again. We'll schedule another live, part 2 of this one. So if you're interested, please, guys, make sure y'all follow us for information on when Dante will be back. We're going to start with Mark. Mark, do you have anything you want to say about the live tonight?
Oh, damn. I was going to make comments. All right. I'm going to wait until it's over.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead with your comments.
I just want to say I appreciated Dante. It was all informative, and it has me thinking some of this will be more revealed tomorrow. So grateful for all the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, Shy, you said you had something you wanted to say.
For sure. I seen Dante on here a few times already. That's why I already knew we was in for a treat. But a lot of the things that he said, I knew from my family history, and then growing up and having to spend my summers in Bama, the things that I would hear, what I would have to witness, seeing people not being able to cross certain thresholds, seeing how white people was being used as tools to be sicked on other people, how they was revered. And it was, people don't understand, when I was up north, a lot of the shit that was being said, but the way that he was describing it tonight, I'm I'm glad somebody did their research and is able to say it outside of an experience base, and it's more of a documentation. So now that information is going to be put out here, and hopefully people willing to receive it in the masses, and not just us and people like us, but everybody's able to gravitate towards it, because this is really our plight. And like somebody just wrote, it's a horrifying truth, for real. And the part where you talked about their sexual appetite, a lot of y'all don't understand that y'all families and our families and our communities are hypersexual like that because of what happened. And when you see people come from certain plantations in certain areas, boy, it's almost like you can see it. Like, oh, it's like, what the hell happened around there for y'all to be getting it cracking like this? I don't know if y'all been to small towns in Bama, the SIP, but we all know his last name base, and you can see on somebody's last name what's going on, and you can only imagine what their family was just exposed to.
If I may say, Shy, I so appreciate you making that last point. I didn't say this tonight, but I say it in my book, and I say it in a lot of my classes that I teach and lectures. Black male sexual behavior is patterned after white male sexual behavior. Think about what it means to have hundreds of years where your father, great-great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-great-great-grandfather is being locked in rooms with Black women and forced to rape them. Think about what that inspires and what that person then begins to pass down to their nephews, their son, their children. Think about how Black women begin to feel the level of unsafety. And I don't even think we can fully understand it, right? And so Black men, they see white men going all over the place, having multiple children by many different white women, and then they're having many different children by Black women. They constitute the prototype of the baby daddy. And so Black men take on that behavior, but not only because they're looking at what white men are doing, it is what is being inspired. Leave as many babies as you have to around because we need the bodies for profit. So the baby daddy prototype from a psychosocial, a psychocultural standpoint is being built years before we even grab on to that terminology. But the white male is what inspires it. And so we've not known our own bodies. We've not had control over our own bodies. We've not had control over our own sexual intercourses and activities outside of white rulership. It's always been controlled. It's always been defined. It's always been regulated. So you absolutely, thank you, Shai, so much.
Thank you for that. Athena, well, she disappeared. I was going to ask her to make her comment. We'll come back to Athena. Mr. Eric, go ahead with your comment.
Okay, I know. I wanted a list of the books you had mentioned. If you can, just write them down and take a photocopy of them, and then
I'll give you one better.
See, I feel special right today. She acknowledged me saying I was handsome and intelligent when I first came in. I feel so blessed. Keep going.
When people ask me this, I say, go and buy Diagnosing Whiteness and get my new book, The Psychopathy of Whiteness, because I document over 400 sources in each of those books. And so every book that I named, in addition to hundreds of other books, are at the back in my reference list. So if you really, are on the journey and desire to take a deep dive and learn, I would say read my two books first, but then go and start and locate when I'm citing certain other literatures, whether it be books or papers, go and, get those books as well. Or you can go to your local library and have them order those books. And when they come in, you can just check them out from the library.
I'm planning on buying your book so I can get and buy the other books. But I know you mentioned a book that was by somebody else. It was the first book, I think it was.
Oh yeah, I mentioned many others. So one was Black Skin, White Mask by Dr. Francis Fanon. The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat.
What did it look like?
The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat. Towards a reclamation of the African mind. The ISIS Papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
Right, yeah, I got that book.
Black on Black Violence, the Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in Service to White Domination. So yeah, all of these are in the back of my book, along with many more.
Okay. Now
we're gonna purchase a book. We're gonna purchase a book, and we're going to purchase a book from Dante as the Cousins Chat, and we're going to have it as a giveaway on Dante's next prize.
Okay.
Make
Also,
sure
I
you
want.
participated for a chance to win that book.
All right, and I'm echoing. Am I echoing? No, but
No,
I know about a lot, and like y'all know how I treasure women because I would do. I know my I go. I know my grandparents, great grandparents, great grandparents, and great grandparents. I met all of them cats when I was a kid, and I was telling people that and poet, Q, all, and they didn't know. I respect all women. I don't argue, never call them out the name because when I was learning this history, I was learning it firsthand. Because being the only boy by Aboriginal Cato Indian and a Haitian father, I'm first born here. So when I was learning this stuff, I'm like, yeah, whatever, pops. I'm not believing it. But when I was listening to the great and the great grandparents, I'm like, wow. They showing me pictures. They showing me what they call them, long blades. But I'm talking to them, and I have a lot of stuff going all the way back to the 1800s, right? So I'm learning this here. When they giving me books, and so I said, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. That's the faith I grew up in, you know. And I was telling, and they know me. They say, "Hey, would not argue." And one thing I do, and I don't belittle women like that. And when some guys come in, I say, if you understand what our women went through, you will stop doing what you're doing, so women can stop doing what they're doing, because the torture that they both went through, and you understand where names came from, you'll stop that. Because back in the days, and y'all wasn't born at this time, when they had family television, they had to figure out a way to get the black fathers away from the mothers and children. And then they started doing it good in the 80s, late 80s and the 90s. But when they kicked off the movie Fridays, that was the one up on everything. And they got it done with Fridays with all that other jargon and the stuff dealing with some of Tyler Perry movies. They would never put a movie where they're putting us working together. They don't want to do it. They want us fighting one another.
Well,
And people don't.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say a lot of that began to come from, because I think what Eric is saying has a lot of validity to it. Because even when you think of entertainment and the shows that began to emerge, like the Black Capitalists, right? The Jeffersons, or
Yeah.
Good Times, right? All of those scripts are being written by predominantly white people, and actually mostly all white people. So the images of the people that you're seeing on screen are from the versions and the prototypes that white people create. And that's
Yeah.
even true for the Cosby Show. Even though Bill Cosby had total control of
And
creativity,
yes.
his mind is informed by Eurocentricity. So the one thing I just want to say is, if you have ever thought or come across people in your family or out in community where you say, "Oh, that black woman is angry," she deserves to be angry. Great grandma deserved to be angry if she was, our great aunties, whomever, if they were. Not saying that they are, because the women I grew up around were not that way. But I've heard people project this idea that, oh, great grandma so and so was angry. You would be angry too. And that's true for black men. And I'm going to end with this. This work helped me heal the relationship with my dad. I resented my dad and hated my dad because I had not understood what my dad had to go through as a black man, as a black boy growing up in the 1940s, 50s. And then when he became a black man, just what he had gone through that led him on a journey. And my dad said to me one day, I started going out and robbing people because they wouldn't hire me in San Francisco. And when I saw the documentary Take This Hammer by James Baldwin, and all those black men in San Francisco in 1963 are saying the same thing, I said, oh my God, I just started to bawl. I started crying because I realized I had no concept of what my dad had gone through, and I had not humanized him. And the moment I did that, I went to total compassion and gratitude, and I became grateful for my dad. So this work has just been miraculous in my life. So thank you, cousin. Thank you, cousin Niche, and thank you, cousin Sonia, for inviting me and having me on.
Oh, it was a pleasure. We have two more people. I don't know if Athena had a chance to speak. DC, I wanted to give him a chance to speak, and K Love. Can you, if you guys have comments, can you make your comments before we end the live? I'll extend it 5 more minutes. Go ahead. Who wants to go first? Anybody?
I was
Kayla?
trying to wait my turn because I don't want to be too anxious. But
Go
okay,
ahead.
so I'm so like overwhelmed with joy, but I just want to say that you said so many profound things. And I think when we're teaching others, I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. When we're teaching others, we have to remember that a lot of people comprehension rate is like 3rd to 6th grade, and a lot of our people, not in the like in a stereotype, but just in my experience, right, they haven't did the work to learn about these things because they fall into the pit of forgetting about them, and because it's uncomfortable to hear. And a lot of people don't realize that we grow when we're uncomfortable. That's when we do the most growing, and learning about ourselves and learning to be empathetic, compassionate, and considerate to our ancestors and our family, but also to ourselves so that we can better navigate all of these hateful things that happen to us. So I just want to tell you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I will follow you and buy all your books. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you coming, Caleb. It was a pleasure having you on the panel. Athena, do you have any last remarks
I
that you
just
want to
want
say?
to absolutely. I just want to know, will there be a part 2? Because I have a list of questions I would like to ask you. If you have
Absolutely.
time. Yeah. And I do thank you, Dante. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you for your research, because I've learned a lot tonight. And I appreciate being in rooms like this where iron sharpens iron, and just to be fed, different information that benefits, our race. So I do thank you for all that you have done. Thanks.
Thank you. I hope I was clear. I think my head gets filled with a lot of different thoughts, and sometimes I'm just like going and going and going. So I hope I was clear. Thank you.
No, you're great. Thank you.
And again, guys, we will be purchasing Dante's book and giving you guys a chance to win that book. DC, do you have anything you want to say before we end the live? Is he there?
Yeah, crickets. I don't hear him.
Okay. Well,
Okay, may I say that you clearly and concisely expressed everything. You did amazing. That's it. Good night.
Can I say one thing? Can I say one thing? And
go
this
ahead.
is to applaud all the women. Men forget this about Black Wall Streets. Women was making that money on the side to help the black men build Black Wall Streets. I have to give y'all credit because those women back then was not submissive. They was far from that. So those who don't know this history, please Google it or whatever you need to do, and I'll speak to Mr. Dante, my nephew, because I'm not saying he's gonna give me $200 to say this unless he really, really want to. But he knows the history of this Black Wall Street, and if y'all women understand that, y'all help them brothers do that. So all those men who don't know this, stop saying the women were submissive. Those women work hard to get where we are to this. Well, they ain't work hard to get to where y'all are to this day. They work hard for you can be better today. So though I'm always pushing on my women. I'm always push for these queens, and that's who I am, Eric Davis, nephew. I didn't just promote this for you. That $200 is up to you if you want to put it on my books in here and give me 17 galaxies and whatever they call them. We have to speak to my manager, Athena. She knows about that. But I want to give y'all credit to these ladies because the work that y'all have done back then, nobody's speaking on other than today with this help with Dante. Because I read a lot. You can ask Coco this, and I'm going to have to get those books. Because that's a big ass law book. That I have a lot of law books. I have never seen a book that big. That's like, how heavy is it? It looks like it was like 30, 45 pounds.
It's heavy. It really is heavy. But I do think to change the narrative, we should be talking about the founding mothers because Black women created the labor force that built this country, and they are the founders of this nation. They are the founders of this, and Black men too, right? To a degree, but not to the extent that Black women did, because their bodies, that labor process, people don't realize you go through labor, you are aging. Your body goes through trauma, which is why some Black women can die while giving birth, and many have, right? So we talk about the founding mothers, not these sociopathic, psychopathic founding fathers. I hate when I hear that language coming out of Black people's mouth. Well, you know, the founding fathers, fuck these people. Anyway, thank you.
Period.
Well
Period,
said.
Dante. That's a
Well said.
period.
Exclamation.
Well
Now you see,
said.
That water
you
is
see
good,
how I
though.
made them bring that out, and you see what I did. I contributed at least one less sentence, and I ain't see a galaxy and a Donkey Kong pop up on the screen for me yet. But that's okay. I'm gonna just
Praise the
mute.
Lord.
Well, guys, thank you again for
All
joining
right.
tonight. Thank you so much, Dante. We love you. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the work you put into the research to educate us on tonight. Yes, there will be a part 2, maybe even a part 3. I don't know. However, we
Shout
will
out to
keep
the
you guys.
intellectual boss.
Yeah, we will keep you guys posted. Make sure you um, follow me, the cousin, on the cousins chat. Follow Poet, still a poet. She's the co-host of the cousins chat. Well, we are co-hosting together. And make sure you guys follow Dante. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys coming.
Can I
Niche,
just
did you have anything you wanted to say? I know you kind of can't say much tonight. She said, "Love, peace, and hair grease." That's what she said. Okay.
I think I saw my business partner in here, JJ, and Micah, who I love very, very, very much. I'm not sure if they're still on here, but I saw her pop up and just wanted to give a shout out. I could not do the work that I do without this young lady. Her name is JJ, and I love and adore you, and I love you too, Micah, my little brother. Okay, thank y'all so much for having me. And please pray for me because it's hard to do this work. I'm traumatized every time I have to look at it, every time I have to repeat it. And I'm a very empathic person too, so I feel deeply. And I get upset many times when I'm speaking publicly or lecturing because
It's
there's just no
heartbreaking.
words really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
guys, again, I appreciate you all for coming tonight. And we're here every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I believe that's 6 p.m. Pacific Time.
Mhm.
Am I correct? Okay. So make sure you guys follow, watch our posts because we're always putting stuff out there. We do have sponsors. We didn't do a giveaway tonight, but we will be doing some giveaways next week again. Tonight was a special, and I hope you guys got fed and was receptive to everything that was said tonight. So again, we thank you all for coming. Dante, will chat it up soon, and love you much, and thank you for hosting tonight. So with that being said, guys, y'all know me. Love, peace, and hair grease. I'm out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.